The calendar notification hit my screen at 10:23 a.m. on a Wednesday morning in late October. Subject line, Career Development Discussion. Location, Executive Conference Room. Attendees, Landon Webb, CEO. Jennifer Walsh, HR Director. Me. I stared at that notification for maybe 45 seconds before it clicked. In my 22 years at Aerotech Solutions, I'd watched this exact setup maybe 10 times. The vague meeting title, the closed-door location, the HR backup. It's corporate code for "you're done." My name is Henry Morrison. Most folks call me Hank. I'm 54 years old, and for over 2 decades, I've been the guy who keeps airplanes from falling out of the sky. My official title is Director of Aviation Safety Compliance, which sounds boring until you realize that one missed detail can turn a routine cargo flight into a smoking crater. I verify that our aviation operations meet FAA airworthiness standards under Part 135 regulations. I track maintenance logs for aircraft handling hazardous materials per DOT requirements. I make sure our pilot certifications stay current with flight duty time limitations. I ensure the documentation we submit to federal agencies reflects reality, not some fantasy version management prefers. It's not glamorous work, no corner office overlooking the Dallas skyline, no company jet. But it's the kind of work that keeps an aviation logistics company from losing their operating certificate when someone with a badge shows up asking uncomfortable questions about our flight safety records. See, I learned a thing or two about accountability during my 12 years in the Air Force. Chain of command, following technical orders, understanding that when you sign your name to something, lives depend on getting it right. These aren't just nice ideas. They're the difference between mission success and mission failure. Between crews coming home or not coming home at all. On KC-135 Stratotankers, refueling fighter jets at 30,000 feet over places like Afghanistan and Iraq, there was no room for good enough or close enough. When you're pumping 200,000 pounds of jet fuel through a boom while flying 400 miles per hour in combat airspace, precision isn't optional. Every fuel flow reading matters. Every hydraulic pressure gauge matters. Every pre-flight checklist exists because someone before you paid the price for cutting corners. I remember one mission over Kandahar in 2003, we were refueling F-16s on a close air support run when our boom operator noticed a slight vibration in the fuel transfer system. Just a tiny irregularity that most people would have ignored. But we shut down the operation immediately, ran diagnostics, and discovered a seal failure that could have caused a catastrophic fuel leak at altitude. That attention to detail probably saved 8 lives that day. That mindset doesn't just disappear when you trade Air Force blues for civilian khakis. When I started at Aerotech fresh out of service in 2002, I approached aviation compliance the same way I'd approached aerial refueling operations, with absolute precision and zero tolerance for shortcuts. For 21 years, that approach worked. We passed every FAA audit. Our due OT renewals sailed through. Our insurance inspections came back clean. The company built a reputation for operational excellence that helped us land major contracts with defense contractors across the Southwest. We were the outfit that Lockheed Martin trusted to move their sensitive electronics, the company that Boeing relied on for emergency parts delivery. Then Landon Webb arrived. I didn't panic when I saw that meeting invite. Panic happens when something catches you by surprise. This had been building for months, each week adding another layer to a situation I could see coming but couldn't prevent. Like watching weather radar show a thunderstorm heading straight for your flight path with nowhere to divert. So I took a sip of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago, black, like I'd been drinking since my Air Force days, minimized the calendar notification, and went back to finishing a fuel contamination audit that nobody had requested. After 22 years, muscle memory doesn't care if the people upstairs have decided you're disposable. The work continues because that's what professionals do. My house in Plano sits on a quiet street where American flags hang from front porches and neighbors still wave when they see each other. I've got a 30-year mortgage with 8 years left, 2 kids in college whose tuition bills arrive like clockwork every semester, and a wife who's been putting up with my obsession with documentation and detail for 25 years. When you're 54 and staring down a termination meeting, those obligations don't just disappear because some kid's CEO decides you're not a team player. The trouble started 6 months earlier when Landon Webb arrived as our new CEO. The board brought him in from a Silicon Valley logistics startup with instructions to modernize operations and increase efficiency. He was 32, fresh from selling his last company for $50 million, and his first company-wide meeting was full of phrases like disrupting legacy workflows and empowering teams to move at digital speed. I've got nothing against young leadership. Hell, some of my best commanding officers were younger than me. But there's a difference between confidence and arrogance, between innovation and recklessness. Within his first month, Landon restructured the entire operations department, bringing in new managers from outside the aviation industry. Cole Rivers came from Amazon Fulfillment. Rachel Foster had a background in automotive logistics. Good people probably, but they didn't understand that aviation operations isn't like shipping packages or moving car parts. When you're handling aircraft that carry hazardous materials or military cargo, you can't just optimize for speed and cost. Every flight has to be tracked with complete maintenance documentation. Every pilot needs current certifications for the specific aircraft type. Every load of hazardous cargo requires specialized handling permits. These aren't bureaucratic annoyances. They're federal requirements with criminal penalties for violations. The first warning sign came in July when we were preparing for a routine FAA audit of our flight operations. Part of the prep involved verifying that our pilot training records were complete and accurate. We operate cargo planes that require specific type ratings. You can't just put any commercial pilot in a Beechcraft King Air hauling military electronics from Dallas-Fort Worth to bases across the Southwest. Federal regulations under Part 135.293 require pilots to complete recurrent training every 6 months and pass written examinations. If those requirements aren't met, the pilot can't legally fly commercial operations. It's not complicated, just precise, like most things in aviation. I found 8 instances over the previous quarter where pilots had flown missions with expired training certifications. Each flight represented a potential violation that could ground our entire fleet if the FAA discovered it. We're talking about flights carrying sensitive military equipment to Dyess Air Force Base, Shepard Air Force Base, and other installations that depend on our reliability. Protocol requires immediate grounding of affected pilots pending retraining and documentation of all flights they operated while non-current. It's not negotiable. When the FAA shows up with clipboards and badges, they don't care about your operational tempo or customer relationships. When I brought this to Cole Rivers, the new operations manager, he told me it was a non-issue, said the pilots were highly experienced and the training gaps were just paperwork delays, probably just bureaucratic timing issues. Look, Hank, he said, leaning back in his ergonomic chair that probably cost more than most people make in a month. I get that you Air Force guys like everything documented down to the last detail, but we're trying to run a business here. These guys have been flying for 20 years. A few days late on some training module isn't going to make them forget how to fly. That's when I knew we were dealing with someone who fundamentally didn't understand the industry. In aviation, a few days late isn't a minor scheduling issue. It's a federal violation. I'd seen careers ended and companies grounded for exactly this kind of thinking. I sent him an email that same afternoon explaining that regardless of experience level, federal regulations under Part 135.293 require current training certifications for all commercial pilots, and operating with expired certifications constitutes a violation of our operating certificate. I copied the relevant CFR sections and attached the FAA guidance documents. Cole replied within an hour that the flight training department would be more diligent about scheduling going forward. Rachel replied with, "Thanks for flagging this, Hank. Let's keep our momentum moving." Keep momentum moving became the standard response to everything I flagged. Don't slow down the process. Trust the team's judgment. Move fast and break things. Except in aviation, breaking things can literally kill people. And when you're hauling military cargo that could include anything from communications equipment to missile components, the stakes aren't just about money. The maintenance falsification issue came in August, and it was worse than the pilot training problem. Our quarterly DOT report required verification that all aircraft had completed mandatory maintenance inspections per Part 135.411. This isn't optional maintenance, it's federal law. Every aircraft in commercial service needs documented inspections at specific hour intervals. The inspection has to be signed off by an FAA-certified mechanic, and any discrepancies have to be corrected before the aircraft returns to service. It's the kind of systematic approach that keeps planes in the air instead of scattered across a field in pieces. I pulled the maintenance logs from our fleet management system and found that 3 aircraft had been flying with overdue inspections due to a scheduling conflict that pushed maintenance windows back by 10 days. The system showed them at pending status, but FAA requirements are binary. You either have current maintenance or you don't. There's no gray area, no close enough standard. I ran the numbers. These 3 aircraft had collectively flown 47 missions while technically non-airworthy under federal regulations. Routes from Dallas to San Antonio carrying defense contractor equipment, flights to Houston with aerospace components, cargo runs to Fort Worth with classified materials that I wasn't even cleared to know the details of. If the FAA discovered this during an inspection, we'd be looking at immediate certificate suspension and potential criminal charges for the responsible parties. Not just fines or administrative action, actual federal prosecution under Title 18. I couldn't certify that maintenance was current when I knew it wasn't, so I sent an email to Rachel explaining the situation and requesting a deadline extension while we completed the overdue inspections. I estimated it would take 5 business days to resolve, long enough to properly inspect the aircraft and document everything according to federal standards. Her response was classic corporate doublespeak. Hank, appreciate the thoroughness, but we're under pressure to maintain our compliance metrics. Please go ahead and mark maintenance as current. We'll cycle the affected aircraft through extended inspections next quarter. This is a timing issue, not a substantive gap. Reading that email felt like watching someone suggest we skip the pre-flight checklist because takeoff was scheduled in 10 minutes. Dangerous doesn't begin to cover it. I replied that marking overdue maintenance as current would constitute falsification of federal records under 18 U.S.C. 1001, said I couldn't sign off on it. Mentioned that FAA inspectors aren't known for their sense of humor about maintenance shortcuts, especially when military cargo is involved. That didn't go over well. Rachel called me into her office the next day and told me I was developing a reputation for being inflexible. She said Landon was trying to build a high-performance culture and I needed to be more of a team player. The office had one of those motivational posters on the wall, teamwork, because sometimes you can't do it all yourself, with a picture of people rowing a boat. I wondered if anyone had told them that in aviation, teamwork means everyone following the same safety protocols, not covering for each other's shortcuts. She used the word technically a lot, as in technically you're correct, but we need to be pragmatic here. As in technically the maintenance is overdue, but these are well-maintained aircraft. As in technically we should follow every regulation to the letter, but that's not how modern businesses operate. I tried explaining that technically correct is the only kind of correct that matters when federal agents are reviewing your files. That the FAA doesn't care about your company culture or performance metrics. That modern business approaches don't override federal aviation laws that exist because people died when those laws didn't exist. She wasn't interested in my explanation. I refused to sign the maintenance certification, so Rachel signed it herself. She had signatory authority as the VP of Operations. The report went to the DOT with her signature instead of mine, certifying that all aircraft had completed required maintenance when I had documented proof that 3 of them hadn't. That's when I knew the fix was in. They weren't just cutting corners. They were systematically bypassing federal requirements and originally wanted my signature on the lies. When I wouldn't play along, they'd find someone who would. But by the 3rd quarter, they'd figured out a more sophisticated workaround. Instead of asking me to certify things I knew were false, they started changing the information before it reached me. They'd clean up the paperwork, massage the numbers, and present me with documentation that looked complete on the surface. The fuel contamination incident in September was the worst violation yet, and it showed me just how far they were willing to go. A shipment of military electronics had been damaged during transport when jet fuel leaked from a defective fuel tank seal on one of our Beechcraft King Airs. The contamination compromised sensitive communication equipment worth approximately $200,000 minus the kind of gear that helps coordinate operations in places like Syria and Afghanistan. When electronics get contaminated with Jet A fuel, they don't just stop working. They can fail unpredictably, which in military communications means people might not get the message that could save their lives. FAA regulations under Part 13.5.417 Trine required immediate notification and investigation of any fuel system malfunction that affects cargo. It's not a suggestion or a guideline. It's a federal mandate that exists because fuel contamination has caused aircraft losses and cargo failures that put lives at risk. Instead, management decided to clean the equipment and continue the delivery while monitoring the situation to avoid disrupting the client relationship. Their reasoning was that full disclosure would damage our relationship with the defense contractor and cost us future business. They were more worried about next quarter's revenue than about equipment that might fail when soldiers needed it most. I'd sent 2 separate emails flagging this as a mandatory reporting situation under federal hazmat transportation guidelines. Rachel had responded that they were consulting with legal and would proceed cautiously to avoid unnecessary escalation. That was corporate speak for "we're going to bury this and hope nobody finds out." 4 weeks later, no report had been filed. The contaminated equipment was delivered to the customer. If that equipment failed during a combat operation, it could compromise military communications in a war zone. We're talking about potentially getting people killed because some executive didn't want to have an uncomfortable conversation with a client. At that point, I started keeping more detailed records. Every email, every conversation, every instance where I raised concerns and was overruled. I set up a separate folder on my personal laptop and began documenting everything with the methodical precision I'd learned during those KC-135 missions over Iraq. In the Air Force, we had something called a hazardous air traffic report, documentation you filed when you witnessed anything that could compromise flight safety. The philosophy was simple: document everything because the life you save might be your wingman's. That same principle applied here, except instead of wingmen, we were talking about soldiers, defense contractors, and ultimately the aviation industry's reputation for safety. That night, I went home to my house in Plano and sat at my kitchen table with a Shiner Bock and my laptop. Outside, the Texas heat was finally breaking as October settled in. My neighbor Wade was working on his Ford F-15 in his driveway, same truck he'd been nursing along for the past 8 years. Working class guys like us, we fix things when they break. We don't just slap a fresh coat of paint on them and pretend they're good as new. I opened my compliance documentation folder and started organizing everything chronologically. If I was going to be fired for refusing to falsify federal records, I wanted a complete paper trail showing exactly what I'd tried to prevent. The pattern was clear when you looked at it from 30,000 feet. Every time I raised a safety concern, management responded with corporate language designed to minimize the issue. Every time I requested proper procedures, they found workarounds that technically met the letter of their interpretation while completely ignoring the spirit of federal aviation law. It reminded me of something my old squadron commander used to say: there are old pilots and bold pilots, but no old, bold pilots. Management was betting that they could be bold enough to cut corners without getting caught. But aviation has a way of humbling people who think they're smarter than physics and federal law. My wife Linda came into the kitchen around 10 p.m., took one look at me surrounded by printouts and documentation, and just shook her head. "How bad is it this time?" she asked. "Bad enough that I might be looking for a new job soon," I told her. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat down across from me. We'd been married 25 years, and she'd seen me through the transition from military to civilian life, through the challenges of learning a new industry, through the satisfaction of building something solid and reliable. She knew that when I got that look, the same one I'd had during those pre-flight briefings back in my Air Force days, it meant I'd found something that could get people killed. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Same thing I always do," I said. My job, by midnight, I had everything organized. Email threads showing repeated requests to cut corners, documentation proving that certifications had been falsified, evidence that safety incidents had been covered up instead of reported to federal agencies. I backed everything up to 3 separate locations. My personal cloud storage, a USB drive I kept in my desk at home, and a second USB drive I put in our safe deposit box at the bank. When you've spent 12 years in military aviation, you learn that redundancy isn't paranoia, it's survival. At 3:47 p.m. the next Wednesday, I saved my final document, backed it up, and stood from my desk. I'd already packed the photos from my office that morning, my Air Force squadron picture, the flag that had been flown over the Capitol and presented to me at retirement, the commendation letter from when our KC-135 crew received recognition for exceptional performance during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Not because I'm psychic, but because I understand patterns. When you've been around long enough, you learn to read the weather before the storm arrives. The walk from my desk to the executive conference room took 90 seconds, long enough to notice that the usual office chatter had dropped to whispers, long enough to see colleagues suddenly become very interested in their computer screens as I passed, long enough to feel the weight of being the person everyone knows is about to become a cautionary tale. I was halfway down the corridor when I heard it. A sound so routine that most people wouldn't register it, the mechanical whir of the security badge printer at the front reception desk. It cycled once, paused, then cycled twice more in rapid succession. 3 visitors arriving simultaneously, unscheduled. In my 22 years at Aerotech, unannounced visitors always meant one of two things: major customers with urgent problems or government inspectors conducting surprise audits. Given that it was 3 to 50 p.m. on a Wednesday, customers seemed unlikely. I slowed my pace and glanced toward the glass partition separating the main hallway from the lobby. 3 people in dark suits stood at the security desk. 2 men, 1 woman. The woman wore a lanyard with a federal seal I recognized immediately: Federal Aviation Administration, Flight Standards District Office. One of the men carried a leather briefcase that looked heavy enough to contain several pounds of documentation. The other had a tablet and was already taking notes. They had the look of people who'd done this before: methodical, professional, completely focused on their mission. They weren't smiling. They weren't asking Karen Pierce, our receptionist, for directions to the bathroom. They were showing credentials and moving past the security checkpoint with the kind of purposeful stride that doesn't wait for permission. Karen picked up her phone with shaking hands. Her voice carried just far enough for me to hear, "There are FAA inspectors here. They're asking for the Director of Aviation Safety Compliance. They say it's urgent." My pulse kicked up, not with fear, but with something sharper: recognition. Vindication, maybe. After months of watching management play fast and loose with federal regulations, the cavalry had finally arrived. I changed direction. Instead of heading toward the executive conference room where Landon was preparing to fire me, I turned toward the main lobby. The woman with the FAA lanyard saw me approach. She was in her mid-40s with steel gray hair pulled back severely and the kind of eyes that had seen every excuse and believed none of them. "Henry Morrison?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." She extended a hand. "Inspector Lisa Hammond, FAA Flight Standards. These are investigators Wade Coleman and Patricia Sullivan. We're here to conduct an unscheduled compliance inspection related to your company's quarterly DOT and FAA filings." My stomach dropped and soared simultaneously. "Understood. What do you need from me?" "Everything," she said. "We need your documentation, your correspondence, your audit trails, and your honest assessment of whether the reports your company submitted to federal agencies over the past 6 months are accurate." Behind me, I heard rapid footsteps. Jennifer Walsh, the HR director, appeared at the edge of the lobby, face flushed. "Excuse me, can I help you?" "We weren't notified of any inspection today." Inspector Hammond turned to her with an expression that could freeze jet fuel at altitude. "Federal inspections under Title 49 don't require advance notification. We're here under statutory authority to examine compliance records. Your cooperation is mandatory, not optional." Jennifer's mouth opened and closed. "I need to notify our CEO." "You do that," Hammond said. "In the meantime, we'll be speaking with Mr. Morrison. I assume there's a private space available." "Conference room 2, I said. "Down this hall, first door on the right." For the next 2 hours, I walked them through everything. The pilot training falsifications, the maintenance record violations, the fuel contamination incident that was never reported. For each violation, I pulled up the documentation on my laptop, the emails where I'd raised concerns, the responses I'd received, the proof that my version of events was accurate. When I finished, Inspector Hammond leaned back in her chair. "Mr. Morrison, what you've shown us constitutes evidence of multiple federal violations. If this documentation is accurate, your company is facing significant legal and financial consequences. I understand. I also want to be clear about your status. You are not a target of this investigation. Based on what you've shown us, you attempted to prevent these violations and were overruled by management." "What about my termination?" "I was scheduled to be fired at 400. Hammond's expression hardened. "If your employer attempts to terminate you while we're conducting this investigation, that becomes retaliation and obstruction. Both are federal offenses." The investigation took 7 months. 7 months of federal agents crawling through every filing we'd submitted, every process we'd certified, every claim we'd made. My documentation became the roadmap for their investigation, proof that the violations weren't accidents or oversights, but deliberate decisions made by people who should have known better. The Department of Transportation filed criminal charges against 3 executives. Landon Webb was indicted on conspiracy to defraud the United States, making false statements to federal agencies and obstruction of justice. Rachel Foster and Cole Rivers faced similar charges. If convicted, they each faced up to 8 years in federal prison. Aerotech Solutions paid $900,000 in fines plus enhanced monitoring requirements for the next 3 years. The company survived, but barely. We lost our largest defense contract during the investigation. Our insurance premiums doubled. Several key customers decided they couldn't afford the risk of working with a company under federal investigation. The board brought in a new CEO, Patricia Clark, who'd spent 25 years in aviation compliance and had zero patience for corner cutting. I was promoted to Vice President of Safety Compliance with full authority over all aviation operations, a 28% salary increase, and an office with windows overlooking Dallas Love Field where I can watch planes take off and land all day. 8 months after the investigation concluded, I was invited to speak at the Air Force Association's annual conference in San Antonio. The topic was corporate accountability in defense contracting. 6 months later, I was named Safety Professional of the Year by the National Aviation Safety Foundation. The award ceremony was held at the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum, with my old KC-135 squadron commander presenting the award. Today, I keep that calendar notification saved on my phone, the one for my 4 p.m. termination meeting that never happened. Sometimes I look at it to remind myself that doing the right thing isn't always the easy thing, but it's always worth it. My office now has the American flag that flew over the Capitol at my Air Force retirement, my squadron photo from the KC-135 days, and a new addition, a framed letter from a young Army communications specialist in Afghanistan. He wrote to thank me after learning that our investigation had prevented faulty communication equipment from being deployed to his unit, equipment that might have failed when his team needed it most. That letter sits on my desk next to my coffee mug, black coffee, same as I've been drinking for 25 years. Because at the end of the day, the work isn't about corporate performance metrics or quarterly earnings. It's about the people who depend on us getting it right the first time, every time. In business, as in the military, mission success depends on everyone doing their job with precision and integrity. Because when the stakes are real, there's no substitute for getting it right. Sometimes the system works exactly as designed, not to protect companies from consequences, but to protect people from companies that forget their consequences. The real victory isn't beating the people who tried to silence you. It's knowing that somewhere, someone you'll never meet gets to go home safe because you refuse to stay quiet.